hats off to Commissioner Suarez. You identified this, I think, one of your first meetings. You brought forward an item about this. Um, the marketplace needs to understand that just because it's the taxpayers' money doesn't mean that it's an endless bucket of money. And unless we start to send a message that there needs to be controls and limits in the cost that we pay for individual units of products, the marketplace is just going to keep on thinking, oh, it's Miami Beach, it's a rich city, it has good coffers, it has good finances. That's the concern that I have. I see you shaking your head, so I
Commissioner,
welcome.
this is a normal commercial grade systems that we're buying. We're buying competitively bid cameras that any commercial enterprise would pay the same cost or greater than what we're paying. We aggressively negotiate with our vendor, and I don't think that the message will be received the way that that we think it would if that's what you're trying to accomplish. I think this is exactly what exists in the marketplace. I mean, we can provide additional information if you'd like on what competitors would be, but we're going to need to expand our systems if we're going to continue to grow. And I would like you to be comfortable with knowing what the marketplace looks like, if that's what it's going to take.
Yes. And I'd like to yield to my colleague, or give the floor back to the vice mayor or the mayor. I don't know.
Why do we need 7 cameras here? What was the impetus for?
So this was requested by Public Works. I don't know if there's anyone from Public Works that can.
If I could just add,
Yes, ma'am.
so this is a facility where we have our sanitation department employees and equipment. So I look at this not just as a public safety, but employee safety, as well as trying to look at it from a risk perspective because of the types of equipment that we have at this facility. So yes, it's a garage, but it's also an employee work area. And so I do want to ensure that if anything happens in that area, that we're able to check the cameras and see what happened. As you know, an incident occurred here at City Hall recently, and I think cameras are important to help us identify where we have any criminal activity or any emergencies. It's always good to have camera access. And so because this is an employee workspace, I would recommend it.
But this is for a storage room in the sanitation? I mean,
Seven
if-
cameras overall. To be one of the areas I believe they mentioned was storage. Yeah, turn up. Big.
Thank you. This is for the 17th Street facility. It's not just a storage area, it's also a place where we have employees that check in every day. I think we have a total of about 85 of our sanitation employees that rotate and use that facility. So these cameras, I believe, are not only to secure the area for the employees, but they'll also provide security for the parking garage as well.
Okay, well, I'm okay with the life safety one on the, I think it was, I don't know, I forgot which item that is, X. What? W. And this is for the 17th garage?
17th Street, yes, that's sir.
Okay. And look, I want to put on the record that, like my colleague Commissioner Dominguez said that, government pays more. I don't know why. I don't know why the government has to pay more for these cameras. If for example, it was a corporation or anyone else, I don't understand why that is. It certainly seems that whenever it comes down to cameras, the technology is like obsolete after a year. but we're always paying top dollar. And look, I mean, this is going to integrate into our intelligence center. But, right now, we don't have someone viewing the cameras full-time, right? I think we have, maybe someone part-time, or if they're injured, right, a police officer would be monitoring this. There's over, 1,000 cameras. Yeah, I understand for the playback, if there was a crime committed, you can kind of piecemeal that, which is great. But, when I see that going to be, penny wise and pound foolish, but I think there, we do need to somewhere draw the line on, what are we going to spend money on appropriately. So. And let's see where the other votes lie.
Commissioner Fournette, but I think we all know where we are. We still gotta
Since we're in the sunshine, because that is escalating costs for with recommendations and costs that are essential like this. This is essential program. Unfortunately, the cost is coming in high, so we need to figure out up the cost for us in these products, and perhaps if you're interested on our night, we ask the ID or to figure out ways what policy changes to do to achieve cost savings.
where you're coming from. You to come. I'm going to support it today. We ready to take the vote? Motion. Yeah.
What are we moving?
Well, it's both C7W and C7X. To C7W.
Just I need a point of clarification for which W so an internal security facility. Please,
C7W is the PD.
that person was caught 4 days later. Loaded.
But is it technology from 2019,
No, sir.
2020?
Current technology.
Who made the motion? Have a motion? C7W.
Make motion.
Commissioner Fernandez? Second. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Commissioner Bott is seconding?
Call the vote. So I have a motion by Commissioner Fernandez, seconded by Commissioner Bott. Is this on both items, or we want to do them separately?
Well, I think Commissioner Suarez is voting one yes and one no, so I think we should do it separately.
So we're going to do it on C7W. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? C7W is 7-0 approved. C7X, motion by Commissioner Fernandez and Commissioner Bott. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? One no, Commissioner Suarez. 6-1.
Thank you. Thank you.
Call C7BM.
C7BM, stop the pause policy, 6/7 modified critical infrastructure projects. It was separated by Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez.
So I wanted to add something to this. I'm not quite sure, Commissioner Fernandez. I mean, I understand why you would like to do this. I think in some cases, what you're doing, so you're saying that if a project is 60% funded, meaning West Avenue or First Street, which we've already addressed, we cannot make any changes. It needs to go to a 5/7 vote. The problem is, the scope of these projects change, the cost of these projects change, and none of that is addressed in your idea, in your resolution. and we passed both of the projects. I would ask that you withdraw this unless you really feel like it needs to happen. But if it does happen, I would like you to add into it that if the scope of the project substantially changes or the cost of the project substantially changes, it remain a 3-4 vote. Because otherwise, you're just putting funding, you're just, you're empowering lobbyists and corporate interest and not the residents of Miami Beach. Because there have been times where something in the past was approved that a lot of people did not want, and you have to reverse course. And it doesn't, and so what, if the scope changes and the amount of dollars change, you can't hamstring us by putting this into the hands of lobbyists. So I would ask, and I've actually written out a little amendment for you. Okay, that, hold on, I have to find it here. It's here, gosh, okay. In the event of substantive material changes to scope or cost of any prior approved CapEx or operating expense, the commission will still require a 4-3 majority to move forward and not the 5/7. Would you accept that amendment?
So, if I could be recognized. Commissioner Fernandez. Okay, I'm not, I can't turn my microphone on. So, help me understand this, Mr. Attorney, because I believe right now there is an existing policy that was adopted back in 2017 that says like changes to our stormwater master plan, changes would require a 5/7 vote. Does this cover that? What Commissioner Wilson Gonzalez is mentioning, would those changes fall under what's already codified or no?
I believe that Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez asked if there could be an amendment to your resolution to deal with cost changes to the project. Did I hear that correctly? I want to make sure that you're looking at the correct version of the resolution, which was in supplemental 1, because the original version did not include language that was added that relates to funding emergencies, funding limitations, material impacts to the cost as a result of unforeseen site conditions. So there is already a carve out from the general rule for those, as well as for any determination by the commission that it wants to accept a recommendation by the city manager to reject bids, so that the commission is not bound to accept a bid that it doesn't believe is appropriate. And also, there's an exception for the city commission not to be pressured into moving forward if there are actions that need to be taken to protect the city's rights under a contract with a design consultant or contractor.
So here's the thing about resiliency and projects, is that the key word is adaptation. We are going to have to adapt. We're going to have to change. And this is just making it more difficult. And it's taking power away from the commission and kind of giving a discretion to both the corporate interest involved in some of these very expensive projects and the administration. So I understand that we had a massive rain event. And I know that there was a lot of feeling that, you know, like fear, and we had this pause, and we don't want to pause, but we paused because they were ruining neighborhoods. Go to Palm and Hibiscus. It was dry, but they were miserable for years and years and years. And I don't know if we're still in litigation with Lanzo or not. At this point, we've addressed those major projects. What I would ask, because we don't have anything in 60% design phase right now, and I think that what we're finding out is that instead of doing these massive projects, over the next 10 years, we're going to address the 20 hotspots, right? So could you add in a third exemption to maintain a simple majority if the size and scope of the project changes substantially, if the cost and scope of the project changes substantially?
If I may, through the mayor.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, So let me just lay the groundwork for this item. The OIG, our Inspector General, has conducted audits on various infrastructure projects. And in those audits, the Office of the Inspector General has highlighted significant budget increases and delays due to design and scope changes. They've provided 3 examples. One example was Palm and Hibiscus. That neighborhood improvement project saw the budget escalate from about $9 million to about over $50 million. Okay, that's a lot of taxpayers' dollars from delays. West Avenue. West Avenue project jumped from about $40 million to what is it, over 100? How much is it now, Madam? About 100. Okay. Indian Creek, it surged from 25 million to over 50 million. So these delays and these untimely changes of design and scope is costing the taxpayers money. It is impacting their quality of life. It's impacting our ability to be resilient. I understand that scope changes are important. And I'm open to the idea of what you're suggesting for as long as we limit those scope changes to once a project reaches a 40 or 50% design completion. Once you reach a certain level of design completion, it just cannot be a simple majority because we have invested so much time of taxpayers' staff time, of resources, of engineers, of people that have worked on this, that we start to be wasteful at a certain point. And in fact, if you see the OIG's recommendation, the OIG recommends that at 30%, we implement a similar policy to limit scope changes once you reach a 30% design completion. And so I'm willing to accept your amendment if we maintain that simple majority vote on that type of change to a 30% design completion. And I don't know, Mr. Attorney, how we could phrase that properly into the motion so that we remain consistent with the intent of my item.
Mayor?
Is that a question for legal?
Dominguez.
I wanted to speak next, and if I take an option.
Yeah, I'll call you next, just Rick is gonna answer the question.
Okay. I'm sure that we can craft some language to address your goal and Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's concern. I do want to point out that as drafted, the resolution already contemplates that if there are funding limitations, these restrictions do not apply. So in the example I believe that she gave is if there's a material scope change which results in a material increase to the cost, you want to have a carve-out, and that carve-out, and maybe we need to tweak the language a bit, but I believe that that is already covered by this resolution, unless Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez has something else in mind.
So, and just so I can make sure I understood the answer, so, and again, I don't have the microphone.
I know I wanted to speak next.
So,
I'll let Commissioner Fernandez finish, and then you Commissioner Dominguez.
So, Mr. Attorney, what you are saying is that the intent of Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's motion is already contemplated in the language in the spirit and the language of the item as it is drafted and printed on the commission agenda. This microphone system, yeah.
The spirit of what Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez is asking for is there. Perhaps we could modify the language a bit.
It's there, it's there.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you. I understand the intent where my colleague is going in order to save money for the taxpayers. I'm not supportive of this item, and I will tell you why. A lot of the resiliency projects, it's not like there's a playbook out there showing us how to do things. And along the way, we've done things right, and we've also made a lot of mistakes. Indian Creek, the Army Corps of Engineer came in and had us rip it up and put it all together. So that was not because of anything the commission did. It was work that was done improperly. And I also feel that this takes away from the commission. Anytime that there's been a pivot in a project, it's made it better. And I feel that maybe we can send this to committee to talk about it more in depth, rather than making the decision now, because I'm not supportive today, but I completely understand where you're coming from.
Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you. For some of these projects that come to the top of mind, like West Avenue or like First Street, I feel as if we're kind of winding up in a very, very similar place to where we started years ago, and there's just 10 years of delays. And it's because of just kind of kicking the can down the road, right? We're not talking about just rounding errors here, immaterial numbers. For West Avenue, Joe Gomez, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're pretty much moving down a path very, very similar, minus some, placements of pump stations and things like that. But it's going to be very similar to essentially where was contemplated when the project would have cost $40 million. Now, 10 years later, it's costing $120 million. It's $80 million. Think about the playgrounds we could build for $80 million. Think about the schools, the summer camps and things like that. And this isn't saying, no, you can't pivot, right? If there's a compelling reason, if it is saying, you know what, this is critical, that the commission can decide. It just takes a little higher threshold. Think about some of the things that we require 5/7 support for. FAR increases, that's 6/7. Yeah. But only after a certain design point, right? 60% is 5/7. That's how I understand it? Yeah.
Yes.
So even there, it leaves some leeway. If Public Works and our city manager and our esteemed staff come to us and say, hey, we need to pivot here, and there's compelling reason to do so, or if there's overwhelming input from the community where we say, no, we need to save these oak trees, or we need to widen the sidewalks, then you're going to get support up here from 5 commissioners to do so. But this really just kind of takes some of the politicization out of things that have just cost taxpayers an exorbitant amount of money. So to me, yes, this is giving up a little power of the commission. But looking in the past history of how we've improperly, and when I say we, I don't mean anybody on this body. I mean, previous commissions. They've, for political reasons, kicked the can down the road for really no change in scope. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's cost taxpayers. We're getting into the hundreds of millions of dollars here. If Joe could.
Thank you, Commissioner, and through the chair. Absolutely. In some cases, it was wanting us to go back and look at other items, but the eventual result was we came back with the same conclusion, and we lost valuable time, spent a lot of money, and in the end, the project may not have gone through, and then here we are 10 years later down the road, projects that should have been completed are still in the design phase.
Through the.
Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez. Commissioner Suarez, and let's vote.
Yeah,
Okay. Here's what I would say with this, and I've lived through all of these, starting with Sunset Harbor. Sunset Harbor started out as a $10 million project, it ended up as a $50 million project. You know why? Because when you start these projects, the scope just organically changes. And by the way, when it didn't change, for example, on Palm and Hibiscus, what we did was we went in and we took a couple of islands that were really, some of them had the most beautiful foliage in the world, and we ruined them. And by the way, the engineer who did that actually was fired. okay? Because of some of the things that he did and because of how the project came out. So Commissioner Dominguez has also lived this because she was, you know, along with Commissioner Samuelin, when we started this whole project with West Avenue, we had objections and we made the project way better. The scope of the project completely changed. There were no like great sidewalks. I mean, there were like, it was really not well designed. And by the way, you're not taking into account the fact that COVID happened and everything was kind of stopped for a few years. So you know what? All of these projects have grown and adapted and changed, and there's going to be some point in the future where, you know, we are in some type of a design phase, and you might need to change that project, and you might not be able to. And what this is doing, and there will be unintended consequences, is literally giving the responsibility, because what will happen is we will be here and a lobbyist, okay, is going to be running the show behind the scenes because of this high threshold and not the residents. So the residents will not be represented and you guys will be in trouble because it will be very easy for a lobbyist to come along and just get, you know, and it's only, you know, what do they have to do? Just get, I mean, it will be impossible. And because they're so powerful and there's so much money involved in these. But what I will tell you is, as you have seen it grow, there's reasons behind it each and every time. And I invite you to go out and just talk to some of the people on Palm and Hibiscus. And by the way, when we started with Sunset Harbor, it was filling up like a fishbowl, okay? And we had to keep adding money to it. And we had to keep, so I mean, these projects are not something, they are adaptable, they are resilient. I don't think you should make it a 6/7 threshold, because I think that you will have some example in the future and residents will come to you and you will not be able to do anything. And I mean, unless you, I guess you could reverse this by the majority of the commission could repeal this, right? Could.
So I need to clarify, just to clarify, and I'm sorry because Commissioner Suarez, but I just need to clarify, the 6/7 vote, that's only part of the policy. The 6/7 vote is, if a project is shovel-ready, and it's about to break ground, and it has all its permits, and you're ready to, break ground on the project, how are we going to say a simple majority it's okay to stop something that you've invested so much of the taxpayers' money, millions of dollars in taxpayers' money that is shovel-ready, and now a simple majority can stop that? That's what the 6/7 refers to. The 5/7 vote refers to, to pause, delay, stop, or materially modify a critical infrastructure project where you've spent already at least $1 million. Having an estimated construction cost of at least $1 million, or is at 60% design. I mean, that's 60% design. You're almost complete with your design. You're so far in. How do you not establish a higher threshold? And I understand the concern that you have. We've worked in here language allowing for exceptions in case of unforeseen site conditions, because those do occur. You get to the site and you start to do work, you start to move the ground, you identify unforeseen conditions. Clearly, you're not going to subject a project where you're encountering unforeseen situations to a higher threshold. But I think we all, as a body, I think if the necessity is there, and if it's reasonable enough, if it's important enough, I believe that the 5 votes would be there, even if it's a 60% vote. With that, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to clarify the intent of the ordinance.
Commissioner Suarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I forgot I'd just weigh in also. And, I want to commend you, Commissioner Fernandez, for putting this forward, because, when you're on the other side, from activist, I guess, to commissioner, you kind of see the whole picture. And there is a lot of holdup for some of these projects, and the fact that you can triple the budget of the project because it just gets stalled over 10 parking spaces, really, in some situations. It's very frustrating, and it's very frustrating to our taxpayers. And I guess this is where I get to be pound wise. okay? Because I don't think I think it's ridiculous to have, a permit, 100% design, and then you just have a simple 4/7 majority. I mean, it should be unanimous if you're going to be pulling a permit at that stage. I can totally understand a 30%, a 5/7. I think that's also, good policy. I think before we even get to 30%, there really should be a widespread communication push for any sort of project where, we can say, look, we did this to engage the community, maybe put out more physical signs like we do during a campaign season. If we did that for projects, I think the community in the surrounding neighborhood would be a lot more aware of what's going on and be a lot more informed than just an email blast. But look, the ballooning cost of these projects is a real concern. And I think that if there was a serious issue with a project, there would be a 5/7 and a 6/7 at the end. So I'm going to be in support of this.
Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, and then let's vote.
Okay, so let me give you an example. The 72nd Street parking garage could be considered critical infrastructure. And if we choose to modify it by any means, according to this, we would have to go to 6/7 vote. Similarly, the Byron Carlisle is over $1 million. They could say that that's somehow critical infrastructure given to, if it's only relating to public work,
The mayor already talked to me.
will cause serious issues, and residents are going, you will have fallout from this, Commissioner Fernandez, because residents will no longer have a voice, and only the lobbyist will have a voice. We would not have been able to amend the Byron Carlisle, we would not be able to amend we would not be able, okay, so what about the 72nd Street garage? So now we can't fix that unless we have a 6/7 vote of the commission? And by the way, it's totally, wait. By the way, it's totally arbitrary who says 37% and who says 60%. Who is deciding when it's 50%? Anybody could tell you, hey, it's at 60%. You can no longer change anything. And the residents of that community are going to come to you and say, you need to make this critical change. And guess what? You're going to say, I'm sorry, I can't, because a lobbyist only has to get to one or two of us to make the changes. So we no longer have any power. There will be unintended consequences to this across the city. By the way, anybody could somehow claim that any kind of project is critical infrastructure. For example, building the, workforce housing, they could say that is critical infrastructure, and we wouldn't have been able to make that change. And the fire station, we wouldn't have been able to make that change either. You're hamstringing us with the fire station. Those kids and those seniors are going to be in trouble because of this, and all I ask you, Commissioner Fernandez, is to refer this to committee so we can further see what projects will qualify under the 60% and who is going to be hurt by this and which residents are going to suffer. Because the only people that are going to suffer from this are residents. And I guarantee you, with the administration, many times, and I love everyone who works here in the administration, but you work on a daily basis with the heads of these companies, with the special interest. And I was elected by the residents. I wasn't elected by corporate interest. I wasn't elected by lobbyists. And that's who I have to represent. And this is going to make it very hard when we do need to make changes because some sort of bad policy from the past is going to come up. So, and think about that. When you think about the poor kids at the community center and the seniors. Please, this could be applied to so many things. So what I would ask is, could we please somehow flesh this out at committee and see from the administration, I would like a list of every single project that this could potentially somehow be classified under and how this would affect us.
If I could just make a comment. By the way, you bring up a lot of good points, Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, but I'm going to defend Commissioner Fernandez and the good faith that he's brought this item is there's also a tremendous, look at the price of West Avenue, it's tripled. This is an item brought in good faith to try to protect our taxpayers. So while there obviously are competing interests, I commend you for trying to save the costs, and obviously, the more we can save our taxpayers on these projects, because look what happens, we end up paying these contractors tremendous amount of money more because of the changes that we are making. Some of them are necessary, no doubt, but that's money that we can use for other issues, public safety, quality of life issues. Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I was going to request also, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, to please refer it to committee so that we can flesh out what it could currently be affected. And just as Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez mentioned, I believe, Commissioner Fernandez, you were the one that brought the change in the fire station. You wouldn't have been able to bring that on if it was.
You can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Attorney, so this item references critical infrastructure as defined in this resolution. Could you please explain how this resolution defines critical infrastructure?
The resolution provides examples of critical infrastructure, and these include projects relating to fire flow, stormwater drainage, potable water, sanitary sewer projects deemed critical due to the advanced age of pipes or risk of failure, utility projects to replace and/or upgrade systems that are at or near capacity, rehabilitation of city facilities deemed critical for providing services to residents, neighborhood improvement projects that have been supported and endorsed by a majority of residents in the applicable neighborhoods, such as road raising and harmonization.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. So this has nothing to do with fire station. The fire station is not included here. 72nd Street Garage, 72nd Street Garage is not included here. Child care facilities is not included here. This is our underground infrastructure that is critical. We're talking about fire flows that are underground, that are some decades upon decades, some of them 6 decades old, that haven't been upgraded. Our stormwater drainage, our potable water, our sanitary sewer projects, infrastructures
Government facilities.
infrastructures that are at or near capacity. We're not talking about Fire Station 1. We're not talking about a parking garage. We're not talking about a community center. We're talking about all of the antiquated, aging infrastructure that is underground, that is at capacity, that is failing, that is putting our residents underwater with rainstorms, and that with each change of design and change of scope, we are increasing the cost to the taxpayers by tens of millions, approaching hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I understand the concerns that you have, but this resolution was written specifically with you, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, in mind, not to include the fire station, not to include the 72nd Street Garage, not to include Child Care Center, not to include any of those things. This, and let the record reflect, was written specifically so that this would not fall under the scope of that, so that the Byron Carlisle wouldn't fall under the scope of this resolution. Everything that you have mentioned, this item has been written specifically so that none of those projects or anything like that or would fall under this. But the reality is that we have been told by our Inspector General that these changes being made so late in the process is affecting our community, is affecting our community's pockets. And as we've seen, has now been so delayed that it's affecting people's homes getting damaged with a foot of water in there. I stand by this item. I understand the concerns that you have. I respect your concerns. I respect if you have to vote no. I respect the diversity of opinions here. I think you have arguments that you firmly believe in. I firmly believe we need to move on these critical infrastructure projects. These are not projects we can do without. A 72nd Street Community Center, we can do without. An Olympic-sized swimming pool, we can do without that. Some of the other things that have been mentioned, the Byron Carlisle project, we,
Oh, right here. I'm sorry, but can I please speak? Because it has.
Take the vote. We know our position. We know our positions already.
yours,
Positions, let's just take the vote.
and I'm sorry, you're not seeing the correct version of the item, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. That is not the latest version of the item. It is in your supplemental material where that language was struck out specifically because I never authorized for that language to be in the item. It was not aligned with the intent of my item, and I specifically asked for that to be removed and deleted because it went away from the intent of the item.
I have so many supplementals.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if I could. So this is when the 6/7 threshold kicks in, is when a project has obtained all permits and is shovel-ready. Joe, 72nd Street Garage, has that obtained all permits and shovel-ready?
No, sir.
Joe, was the Byron Carl years ago obtained all permits and shovel-ready?
No, sir.
Joe, was Fire Station 1 ever obtained all permits and shovel-ready?
No, sir.
So even if these were all included under the scope of that, this legislation would have led to none of them falling under that 6/7 threshold.
Correct.
Stops all conversation.
Thank you. Can we have a motion? There's no motion on the table. Let's take a vote.
So a motion by Commissioner Fernandez, seconded by Commissioner Suarez. All in favor? Anyone opposed?
I'm a no. Bad policy.
It's 5-2, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez and Commissioner, Vice Mayor Dominguez voting no. Item passes.
Call C2E.
C2E is award ITN 2024-008 and ND Municipal Circulator Services. It was separated by Commissioner Dominguez.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had pulled this item because it was confusing to see that the city was participating in negotiations with 3 different organizations. So if you could explain more, thanks.
So good afternoon, through the mayor, Christy Bada, Interim Chief Procurement Officer. The recommendation is to negotiate with We Drive You as the top-ranked proposer, and then also to negotiate with the tied second-ranked proposers, which was LSF Limousines of South Florida and MV Transportation. They were all qualified and can provide the services for the city as deemed by the evaluation committee. And again, We Drive was ranked first by 3 committee members. LSF was ranked first by 2 committee members, and MV was ranked, top-ranked by 1 committee member, and resulted in the ranking that, as I mentioned.
Oh.
Any other questions?
I was looking at this item and I wanted to understand why we were negotiating with all 3.
So the 3 vendors, again, were top-ranked. One was top-ranked. This is an ITN, first of all, and first and foremost, just so that you all understand. We went into this understanding that we were going to negotiate with multiple vendors. The results of the evaluation committee put a bidder in first-ranked and then 2 bidders tied for second. All 3 were deemed qualified, upon review of their proposals and their qualifications, and therefore, the recommendation is to proceed with negotiations with all 3. We will be coming back after successful negotiations with an agreement for your approval and selection, obviously.
We have a motion.
I want to speak on this.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you. What I wanted to suggest, because, over time, I've heard a lot of feedback about our municipal service, our our municipal circulator services. And what I like to see is, once something is negotiated, for it to go to the finance committee before it comes back to the city commission. I like for whatever ultimately is going to come back to us here to first make a stop by finance.
I defer to legal. Is that acceptable?
Apparently, We Drive You is not a local company, and it doesn't have experience in public transit. They do university shuttles. So I'm
they
not
have-
quite sure why
I'm
they
sorry to
bring
interrupt. They have the city of Hollandale.
the city of Hallandale.
Yeah. And they do have they are national. They do have in California and other states in the country.
I guess the other question that we had is, MV Transit is a locally owned in part by a Mid-Beach resident, reached out, and we wanted to know why. I would second your motion to refer this to the finance committee and flesh it out there.
Whatever they negotiate.
Mm-hmm. Is that okay with all of you?
Commissioner Bott.
So are you guys suggesting that the administration negotiates with the three possible contenders, and then once they conclude that negotiation, that gets presented to us at finance before it comes to commission? Is that what the proposal is?
Commissioner Fernandez.
I think the recommendation from the administration is they're seeking authorization to enter into simultaneous negotiations with We Drive You, with Limousines of South Florida, and with NV Transportation. They're seeking our authorization to negotiate with those three entities. And what I am suggesting is that whatever they negotiate, bring it to the finance committee so that we can review it at committee before we bring it back to the full city commission. And the only reason why I suggest that is that over time, I've heard from the residents a lot having to do with our municipal circulator services. And so I know that this is a contract that's important to our residents, and I want to be able to, for us to give it a greater vetting in committee than what we usually do at for these items when it comes to commission.
Also,
Continue with the question? For either the manager or the attorneys, I'm not sure who is best prepared to answer or positioned to answer this. So you would conclude your negotiations with whoever you come to an agreement with. It comes to finance, and then finance would say, this is great, but fix X, Y, and Z, and then it would go back to be further fine-tuned. I don't see how this works exactly. And also, if we do it with this contract, do we now open the door to doing it with other contracts, which seems like a kind of a slippery slope?
Raquel is going to answer that.
Okay. So I do share that concern because of the number of entities that we would be negotiating with, bringing all three, I guess, term sheets or preliminary term sheets to the finance committee for discussion could potentially cause the finance committee to want to request changes to one or more of those term sheets that have been negotiated, but I'll let the attorney add on.
Well, I guess the question is the intention that the administration present a recommendation to the finance committee for one vendor, for the finance committee to then a single one? Because if you come with three, then that's a public meeting and all three vendors will see what their terms are, which might not be in the best interest.
No. As I mentioned, what I don't want is for the negotiated agreement just to be brought and ratified at the city commission without it first being vetted at commission. Whatever is when we bring these items to commission, they're usually on consent, but they're usually substantive items. They're big items. We just never really go into them too much. They're usually consent items. This is an important service to our community. We hear a lot from our residents about the municipal circulator service. I want to make sure that we're able to review this contract well before we bring the final, the final negotiated agreement before the city commission. I want to make sure that at least we give it a fair hearing, a fair review at the finance committee, a recommendation of the finance committee before we bring it back to the city commission. No, but it's most certainly, I don't want you to bring me three negotiated agreements to committee, that just doesn't work. No, the one that you have negotiated, that you intend to bring to the city commission, bring that to committee so that we can review it and make a recommendation.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
When we negotiated the last transit agreement, 15 years, we got stuck in it?
About 10.
We got stuck in a very bad lease for 10 years. Okay, and this is something that a lot of people say, you really don't want to flesh this out on the dais, and I'm telling you, this needs to go to committee, and we need to really have a serious discussion about what's being proposed and look at the different transit agreements and what we're signing on to, because whatever we're signing on to is a long term. I mean, we're looking at what period of time for this new agreement?
Similar period, 10.
10 years. This is 10 years. We're stuck in this agreement for 10 years, and we want to make sure that we have, not just the best deal, but the best product and the best company. And I'm not sure that we have that right now. I don't know who was on the committee. I didn't go through with a fine tooth comb, but sometimes I wonder, what the interests are of the appointees on the committee. So I would like it to come to us, and I want to have a very robust discussion and analysis at finance, and that will definitely benefit all of us in the long term, because this is a decision that is going to affect us for a decade.
Is that a motion, Commissioner Fernandez?
I move to get rid of this microphone system.
So awful.
I move this item with the amendment that it first go by the Finance Committee for a review and recommendation of the negotiated agreement prior to coming to the full City Commission.
Second, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez?
Yes.
Take a vote.
A question, I just want to clarify. I'm so sorry. So once the administration provides a recommendation as to the desired firm, the committee would not then say, we don't like what you've negotiated, let's go to another firm that you.
But that's something that we are allowed to do, isn't it? I
Well,
want to make sure that we're getting the best recommendation. I don't exactly know what this committee decided, but I can tell you that 10 years ago when we made this decision, we didn't make a good decision. And you know what? People have suffered on those trolleys. People have been suffering on those trolleys. The handicapped have been riding in the back like prisoners, okay? People can't get on and off with shopping carts, and I don't want anything like that to ever happen again. So I want to make sure, and I want to double check this decision, and I think we have in our purview that right to do that at committee, in a public forum.
We have a motion and a second. Let's take the vote.
All in favor of C2E as amended with a referral to FERC after full negotiations?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 7-0 as amended C2E.
Let's call R9B. Committees. I think we can do this quickly.
Yes, sir, we can. Everyone has a blue page on the dais. These are appointments to board and committees. There are no oppositions to any of the candidates. We could do this either one at a time, or you can give me permission to do them by acclamation.
Acclamation.
It is, all of them are appointed. Thank you so much. R9E.
That's record-breaking time. Thank you. R9AB. R9AB.
R9AB, discuss act business closures unable to obtain BTR pending Durham approvals.
In the interest of time, I'll save my remarks, but we're having a problem with a number of businesses. There's too many to highlight. 41st Street Dunkin' Donuts is an example. I believe they're going to be opening. Did they open today? But it's been a long road. There's a number of complicating factors. we won't get into all of them, but what can we do as a city to expedite this from the Durham perspective?
Every third Thursday of the month, we have,
Explain what Durham is for everyone who's watching who may not be familiar.
it's Miami-Dade County Department of Regulatory and Economic Resources, better known by the four-letter word DERM, or acronym. DERM approval is required before any CO, certificate of occupancy, certificate of use, CU, or local business sector sheet, BTR, is issued. So they're required by county code to review every CO, CU, and BTR. It's part of the approval process per county codification.
This is impacting existing businesses.
Yes. Durham did an audit approximately 3 years ago, and they sent us a list of businesses that did not have Durham approval. Similarly to the city, they have a process where if a business does not renew their local business tax receipt within 1 year, we make them reapply for their local business tax receipt. That's our business process. Durham has a similar process. If you have not renewed your Durham within 1 year, you have to start all over from scratch. And a lot of businesses, particularly restaurants that have grease traps and multiple restrooms, have had to start the application process from scratch. That means putting everything up to code. So if they had a grease trap from 20 years ago, guess what? That grease trap now needs to get to the new existing code. So we've had a lot of problems. For example, that Dunkin' Donut example, there was 2 Dunkin' Donuts, one on Alton Road, one on 41st Street. The one on Alton Road got their local business sector receipt almost immediately, really quick. They had a newer grease trap. The one on 41st Street had an older grease trap, and they had to go through the process. To help with this, again, every third Thursday of the month, we have someone here from Durham, here at the city in the building department, to assist and troubleshoot with applications. We also have contacts at Durham. Similar to the city, for example, if you get a building permit and you have to get multiple disciplines looking at your permit, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, Durham has their multiple regulatory sections as well. So we've seen applications approved from Durham in 1 day. We've seen applications take months. And we frequently find that folks that have not renewed their BTR have not also renewed their Durham permit. Those are a lot of the companies who've had issues with.
Just using the 41st Street, the Dunkin' Donuts as an example, is if we had not issued the violation, would they have been able to stay open even despite the Durham?
Yes, well, they were operating illegally. They did not have a BTR. That's a different case. They had new ownership. The new ownership never applied for their local business tax receipt. So that was a different example, unique example.
Or what's a more common example?
A more common example, someone that doesn't renew their BTR. 92% of our businesses, we have approximately 7,000 businesses in the city, 92% of our businesses renew on time by the due date, September 30th. That other 8% of the businesses, if they go 1 year lapsing without renewing, they're forced to reapply. And part of the reapplication process is getting Durham approval. And that's where the holdup is.
In summary, because certainly we want to encourage our businesses to renew their BTRs, there's no question, but at the same time, we don't want vacancies. We have enough of them as it is, and now we have existing businesses that are getting shut down.
Completely agree. We send out, for our renewal notices, we send out emails in July, August, September, October, all the way through January. We send out snail mail, we do outbound phone calls. And if you haven't renewed, it's not from us, from our lack of trying.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you completely, and Manny and I had a conversation about this earlier in the week because 7-Eleven has been closed on Alton Road for a very long time, and Durham is part of the process. In addition to snail mail or phone calls, can there be an office visit or store visit so that people know how imminent this is? And do they actually have to remain closed while they're getting some of their permitting back?
We've had some instances where the business has reached out to Durham and they've had some sort of consent agreement where Durham gives them permission to open. And they have an agreement with Durham for 6 months, a year, whatever Durham agrees to. And they give us authorization. But according to our business process, according to city code, we're not allowed to issue a BTR unless Durham approves it. And again, we were subject to a Durham audit approximately 3 years ago.
And Durham specifically told us, you're not allowed to issue BTRs unless we approve the business first. So that's where the holdup is. And we facilitate, we try to troubleshoot, we call, we log on, we invite the business into our office and sometimes help them through the application process and try to call and troubleshoot as best as possible. And thanks to the commission, we actually have someone from Durham here every month as well.
Yeah, and I know we had done that a couple of years ago. We worked on it. I think I brought an item on it. Sorry if somebody else did as well. But and I also met with County Commissioner Steinberg recently about this. I mean, maybe we got to put some pressure on the county legislative body because it's not good. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
When I brought this item, and I believe it was a couple of years ago, my idea was to have our person embedded at Durham, like have one position in the building department whose only job was to get these approvals done with Durham, because it's just not getting done. Look at this Cheesecake Factory situation, Salt and Straw almost did. And because of this, we can't get our businesses open. So if it's a question of allocating one person to only deal with Durham, maybe they don't have to work at Durham, but we have to give all the applications that are in backlog. Anybody who calls and says, I'm stuck in Durham. We just have this problem right now with, what's the theater? The O Cinema. In our own building, O Cinema, they were stuck in Durham for like a year and a half, and until we started to help them, and we just got the email.
We had to make a lot of phone calls.
What?
We had to make a lot of phone calls for that. And if I may, through the mayor, Ms. Williams has started a BTR task force as soon as she became city manager. She's grabbed the bull by the horns here and started a BTR task force made up of department members from economic development, from finance, from co-compliance, and we're actually visiting businesses that were highlighted by Durham as not having their approval and not being able to open. And before code goes out and issues them a violation and shuts them down, we're trying to be proactive and we're literally like bringing them to the water, to bring them to the pond so they can have the water, and helping them apply, troubleshooting before code goes actually out there and shuts them down. Because if code goes out, they're going to issue them a violation and they need to shut. So
How
we're
many
trying to help them.
applications are currently stuck in Durham? The only reason I know this is because when I was opening a restaurant, I needed this grease trap abatement. I was just stuck in Durham, and I had every single other approval I needed, and literally I had to call Mayor Kaffa and say, can you help me? Because I couldn't get a response. And there's a voicemail, and they're so nice on the voicemail, and you can click through and you can send them a message, and then nobody ever responds. And that can go on for 6 months, 8 months. Imagine people are paying rent during this period. I was able to email the mayor, but there's so many people who have no clue what's going on, and they just can't get through. So, I mean, the task force is going to help. I mean, as long as you're one by one. How many applications for BTRs do we have at this very moment? Do we know?
I'd have to get back to you. I could send an email through the manager's office with how many applications are pending right now.
I mean, if we're being proactive about it, that's great. The poor O Cinema, they couldn't get their equipment installed. They didn't have a BTR. They weren't able to get their beer and wine license. It's like going to be one of the only movie theaters in Miami Beach. I mean, and we approved this equipment a year ago, so it really is causing the backlog. But if we do have if we're solving the problem, then that's great. Do we have to take any action?
I can come back and give an update at a future date. Maybe in the future, invite someone from Durham over to speak at a committee meeting.
Could you, well, we brought the head of
LTC.
Durham. The head of Durham came out. He was so nice, but then we just went back and actually nothing really changed.
We find that we often have to reach out to Durham to fast track things.
So, okay, well, I would love for you to come back next month, tell us how many applications are out there, how many people are stuck in Durham right now, and then if we take that data to the county, maybe we can justify the need to have somebody at Durham working for Miami Beach.
Okay, will do.
No? Because last time they said we don't want somebody in the county. I believe that's what you guys said. You went to Durham. You said we really want to have somebody in the building department working with Durham. You brought the head of Durham here. The head of Durham spoke to us. And then what happened after? They said no? Because we didn't have the data.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioner Natasha Diaz, Assistant Director, Building Department. I think what they wanted to do was first try out having a representative here once a month in the building department, which they've been doing for the last about 5 months. And they've been getting some visitors, some people coming in and asking them questions, and they've been helping them. But it's definitely something we can revisit if the numbers are not where we want it to be and we want to see some more improvements. We can definitely revisit it with them and see if they can.
Could we come back next month with the amount of applications, BTRs, people stuck in Durham, and then we can justify the need to create a position where we actually have somebody in Durham at the county that's going to facilitate all of our applications? I think that would be money well spent. We have so many vacancies across the city. Frankly, people don't want to do business here. They don't want to open it up. The rents are extremely high. Landlords don't want to give more than a couple of months. And look at Lincoln Road. And it's impossible because they also updated all the qualifications for opening a restaurant, right? So everybody's grease traps are out of compliance. Everybody needs Durham approval and they just can't get it.
Commissioner, another thing, if I may, that I learned at our last permitting ad hoc committee meeting where we had a Durham representative speak about the things they do, they mentioned how they have a program where they can offer letters of interpretation and determinations to new businesses, right, as a due diligence for starting up a new business. So I thought maybe that might be something good that we can promote to our community as something they can do prior to opening a new business. And then they would tell them in advance, this is what's going on at your establishment, the things you need, such as a new grease trap, that would then help them not prolong opening up their business.
One other thing is that they were, I believe Lincoln Road, when the bid came to talk to me, they were talking about the fact that they were being asked to pay for like impact fees for sidewalk cafe seats that they might be using, they might not be using, like it was causing some sort of problem in the flow. Do you know what I'm talking about? They came to me with a very specific problem, saying that it was either the bathroom requirements or the impact fee per seat for outside sidewalk cafes that was holding up the entire process. Do you
I'm not familiar with sidewalk cafes.
like we should all be familiar because that's what's holding a lot of this up. So and out of compliance. But I don't know. Anyway, I would come back next month with the head of Durham and the data and make a case because they might change their mind. If you're okay with that, that would be my motion.
I like it.
I'll second.
Is that literally a motion or something? Yeah, okay,
Motion to get the data, invite Durham.
okay. All in favor? Aye. We've hit the 7 o'clock hour. We got through a lot of items. Great meeting, very productive. Thank you all. Thank you to the administration. We'll see you next month.